Let us find a comfortable position with our body upright, shoulders relaxed, and listen to 3 sounds of the bell. Namo Shakyamunaye Buddhaya. Dear community, today is the 1st of May in the year 2022. Today we have a ceremony, and that ceremony is when we will remember and be in remembrance of Thich and cast his ashes as a gift from his bodily form that has been divided into 8 or 7 parts. So all of his ashes has been divided into 8 or 7 parts, and each monastery in the Plum Village tradition carries a part of his ashes. And after that, all of our monasteries have already done the casting of the ashes ceremony, and today Deer Park Monastery will cast his ashes. And in a poetic form, we can say it as that today we invite the ashes of the 4 elements to return to the 4 elements. Of course, our daily schedule today is to remember our teacher, to express our gratitude to our teacher. And he's not embodied only in the ashes, and he is not limited or a representation that we have on our lapel, that are memorial pins that says coming and going in freedom. But it is actually in the way that we brought up Thich in the very first moments of his passing. The gratitude that we owe to his teachers depends very much on each of our students, each individual, and it depends on our culture and our education. According to the Confucius followers, once their teacher passed away, they pitch a tent right next to his grave for 3 years, and they stay next to his grave for 3 years to remember the gratitude to their teachers. But the students of the Buddha, the followers of the Buddha, they have a way of expressing their gratitude to their teacher, slightly different from the Confucius. Is that the monks, the bhikshus, after cremating the Buddha, all of his ashes they have spread to where the Buddha has passed. A little bit of his bone. At that time, the king at that time built stupas in order to place the relics in. And this tradition has been transmitted in Buddhism all the way into Vietnam. And according to the monasteries in Vietnam, the ceremonies are very busy there's a lot of music, there's a lot of ceremonies and chants. It's very heavy on the formal part of the ceremony because the tradition of Buddhism it has been transmitted from China. And so therefore the activities of ceremonies and formalities of the world that has been influenced from the world or have been influenced in Buddhism in China. And every day there's always an added element to it. And then even in the Zen monasteries cannot avoid this either because it's so engraved into their tradition. But through Thai's teachings and through his Dharma and his students, Thai's students, we have developed a new way of ceremony and remembrance of our teacher, and that is called Tâm Tang, the ceremony of the heart. And when you remember this, you can see all the formal ceremonies on the outside is needed to express a little bit of the culture that has been integrated into Vietnamese Buddhism, but in depth of what Thai students is the deepest gratitude that they have from the depths of their heart, and the greatest gratitude that they have is to continue the teachings that Thai has offered us to bring happiness to oneself and to bring happiness to others. And this is a new culture that Thai has transmitted to the fourfold Sangha that had learned with Thai. There's one thing that the thing that Thai has taught wonderfully, directly, and I remember this, is that for myself, I myself have not heard directly from Thai's teachings, but I've heard a number of monks and nuns here tell me in their stories. He said that a life of a person is like a pot of tea. The most important thing is that they can enjoy the tea. They can enjoy and can bring the fragrance of the tea with ease and comfort one's life, and not to take the residue of the tea leaves to put it on the altar. But if you're able to penetrate these teachings, then you can see that we all have a right to create a ceremony, to conduct a ceremony, just like in the tradition. We can wear our mourning pins. And then there was a lay person that asked me, how long should I wear my pin? And how long should the memorial be? And the community, this depends on your own manifestation, on the depth of your insight and your energy of practice. If you only believe that you can wear the memorial pin is only to show on the outside, to cry or to beat your chest or and then to take these ashes and then to build a stupa, a grand stupa to venerate, that is a way of expressing memorial and remembrance of Thai, but that's not according to Thai's teachings. It's like you're taking the leftover tea leaves and just putting them on the altar. So the way that we can be in remembrance of Thai in a deeper, profound way is that you remember the gratitude you owe to your teacher. So then you share the teachings, or you remember his teaching, so that you can continue to transmit the teaching, so that others can have exposed to the taste of the practice. That's the second way of remembering Thai. And then the third way is it has no outer show, but you apply the words of your teachers. Allow your life to transform for the better, and transform your unholiness to holiness, so that it can slowly reveal that holiness inside of you to bring peace and joy for yourself, your family, and society. And this is the way that you can express your gratitude to your teacher. It is also the way that you can continue to remember Thai. Maybe in one life, you can wear your whole life of remembering Thai and nobody knows all about it. And that is the deepest way of expressing your gratitude from the depth of your heart. So instead of expressing it through ways that are very formal or visual. You don't need to express it visually, but you can also live it and all the teachings that Thai has given you, and then continue to spread the teaching. This is a way in which a student of the Tathagata or the student of the wise ones that have penetrated their teaching and apply it into their life. This is the most correct way of being in memorial of Thai. And I would like to repeat this here. You know how to drink tea? Of course, you don't want to just put the tea leaves on the table and then just leave it there, or put tea leaves in the stupa and to do a ceremony to make it grand, a stupa as a show of respect. This is to see that it is from our source of insight, the source of insight that Thai has entrusted to us. And so today, on the ceremony of casting Thai's ashes, I would like to remind you is that the community here, you are all students of Thai. You have inherited his energy of insight of a teacher that have put so much heart and love into the right Dharma and to offer it to us. And we should apply his teachings and to allow our life to be more in balance, more peaceful and joyful, and to help those who have the favorable conditions along with you, your loved ones, your children, your friends, your Dharma friends, so they can also inherit this insight. If not, then you will be just like any other monastery, any other temple, to do things out of for formality's sake. And you can just imagine that as a way of showing your filial love for Thai or your respect for Thai, but that is just a formal. This is the one thing that I would like to share with you on the day of casting Thai's ashes. The second thing is, on the long run of Buddhism, on the long scope of Buddhism, from the past until today, there is a verse that the Tathagata students remember very clearly, like the inheritance of the Dharma. All of the sutras that are present in the four sets of Nikaya, and then for 26 centuries until now, Buddhism, because of we are further away from the source, so then the essence of Buddhism has been mixed in with so many different things. So therefore, we cannot inherit the Dharma, and we end up inheriting just outer things. And it seems it's like the flow of life, the further away it is from its source, it has been mixed in with other elements like earth and sand or elements and pollution and all of that. And so therefore, the purity, the essence of the Dharma has been faded. And so like on the whole the tradition of Buddhism from the past until now, we believe that we inherit all of the essential and the most purest teachings, but in reality it's not. The inheritance of the Dharma is to receive the truest, most essential teachings that has been transmitted to you, to go into the practice, and applying it into our everyday life, and to make yourself as a practitioner to become a carrier of the Dharma, so that you can allow the teachings of the Buddha will shine bright. That's the true inheritor of the Dharma. And the inheritor of the Dharma, it is not you make your tradition or your school stronger, or to praise your teacher, or to praise your teacher is better than others. It is not to build your temple grand, or to build a stupa with jewels and precious gems to express your gratitude to your teacher. Those are just tea leaves, used tea leaves. But you need to apply the method of practice from what the Buddha has taught, the ancestors have taught, and that your teachers have taught to transform your life and to taste the Dharma in yourself and to make this life, your life, become the inheritor of the Dharma and the transmitter, the person that can transmit the Dharma of liberation and freedom. This is the true inheritor. So therefore, from the past until now, in the Buddhist tradition, this is very important. Inheriting the Dharma is very important. And if you understand this already, then when you read the sutras of the Buddha, when his students passed away, you can witness. I would like to share with you when the Venerable Shariputra passed away. The novice attending Shariputra was wounded after cremating his body, brought his ashes home, and he met Ananda. And he said, Ananda, these are the ashes of my teacher. My teacher has said that when my teacher passed, to present my ashes to the Buddha, and today I bring his ashes to the Buddha as my teacher had wished. And the Venerable Ananda is the student monastic who ordained after Shariputra and reached enlightenment after Shariputra, but he was the Buddha's attendant. But because he was not fully enlightened yet at that time, so in his heart there's a lot of grief and loss. He felt, and this is something natural. For example, that the majority of us, the students of Thai, we have not reached any sort of enlightenment. But when Thai passed away, you all cried, and you felt you are lost. And that's normal. According to a teacher, we have a lot of emotions more towards our teacher. But if there was our elder brother in our tradition here that has passed away, that elder brother had taught you in place of Thai and supported you in place of Thai and matured you, helped you mature, then you would cry as if like Ananda when he saw the ashes of Shariputra, he cried and he was confused and he was in deep grief, and then he brought the novice in order to present the ashes, and he said, "This is the ashes of my elder brother Shariputra." It was just one day. My brother was just here, a great student teacher that has taught me and mentored me. Now he's just ashes. And the Buddha said, Ananda, Shariputra has passed away. Did he bring his mindfulness and concentration and insight with him? And Ananda said, no, he only passed away, but his mindfulness and concentration and insight, my practice is still mine. And the Buddha asked him, even if Shariputra passed away, all of his teachings, did his teaching penetrate through 1,250 monastics here? Why are you sad? Dear community, that even though the Buddha has his sadness when he lost his student, Shariputra, and this is proven in the Dharma talk that the Buddha had held the ashes of Shariputra and said, I look at the assembly today, there's a big empty space because my two students, Shariputra and Mahamoggallana, had just passed away. Did you know wherever Shariputra and Moggallana were, the community of that village, the people of that village had so much peace and joy, and they said, this is the true warrior of the right Dharma is present here. They have brought about a lot of peace and happiness. They have pushed away the darkness of ignorance, pushed away the wrong path, and these two have already passed. We cannot wait upon another Dharma teacher or student like these two monks. The Buddha has taught us to remind us is that you are like a great tree. All the big branches of the tree will die first and will enter into nirvana. And I would bring out the sutra on this so that you could even the enlightened one also have felt a little bit of grief when his students have passed away. So let alone those who have not reached enlightenment, like Ananda, how can he avoid being sad and grieving? But the most special thing is that from an enlightened person in grief, you can say that there could be an empty space in the community, but his teachings is the pinpoint. It is the conditions for all of the students to inherit this deep, profound teachings is to inherit the right Dharma and not to inherit anything else. And the conditions in the past has been very convenient for us to realize this. You should know the monks in the time they lived of non-abiding. And their possession of a bhikkhu was just 3 robes and a bowl and a razor. And more than that would be a small small container made of bamboo or straw to store salt. And you see these monks, they didn't have much when they hold their alms bowl and they bring salt along, their little container of salt. And if you follow the monk's life, this is something that happens naturally, because sometimes when they offer food to the monks and there's no salt, so then salt has become a possession of the monks. They always have salt on them. A bhikshu who passed away, the foundation is that they are the hero they divide all the possessions of the other monks. So, but they don't have much to divide. They only have the robes, the razor, the water filter, and a small package of salt. And so then inheriting the Dharma is needed, is essential, because that's the only thing that anybody can inherit from one who has passed away. So through the times, the Buddhism have passed through many different cultures and lands, and they did not have keep the alms round tradition like they did in India. If, for example, when Buddhism went to China, it had changed the life of monastics, of abiding in one place, and temples and monasteries are national monasteries that were built by kings and emperors and magistrates. So then, and mayors and governors, and so then that's where all the monks gathered to practice. And so then the fact of inheriting the Dharma is very normal, because those temples did not belong to the monks. But then later on, the monastic were not able to inherit the teachings and the practice from the enlightened ones. So for the inheritance of the Dharma started to fade. They no longer inherit the Dharma, but what do they inherit? They inherit the temple. They have inherited the big temple, the importance of having a big temple. And another level is that instead of inheriting the temple, they receive the robes to be the person who received the transmission of the robe, so that you can be the leader of a school, of a tradition. But dear community, when in the inheritance of the robes has been present, from in the Buddhist tradition, we just sort of drop down to another level. The highest insight in which we can inherit is no longer as the motivation for everyone to inherit the Dharma. And so then, because we don't have the capacity to, then we have to receive the robe, so that as I have insight, it becomes that I'm the leader of the lineage of a school through the robes. And on another level of that is to be the ancestor. I have to be the abbot of the root temple. And that now in the Buddhism in China, in Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, etc., if we look into their schools or different temples or a temple of practice, the situation of the monks and nuns at that time, they're fighting each other. Once their teacher passes away, they have to bring their robes to say that I am the leader of the monks, to bring the incense urns, and once your teacher has passed away, I am the abbot, the next abbot in line of the ancestral temple. And if you see that, we can place a value that in that source of practice, that stream, that the community there, they emphasis so much on the formality of things. They are not attained to wisdom and insight of interbeing in order to inherit the Dharma. And from that basic foundation, if you look into that in the organization as well as the activities of that monastery, you can see the value that is beautiful or not. And I would like to add more in this, that this is a gift that we would like to offer to the U.S. It is the inspiration and the motivation in order to build an activity, a schedule of a new tradition, so that the monks here would be light and heart, that we don't have the idea of receiving inheritance in terms of the robes or bowls, or that you have some sort of authority in this school or in this lineage. And this is one thing that I would like to bear witness to this. I have no intention whatsoever to praise the tradition of the monks and nuns of Thai students at all. You should look with the eyes that you have. First of all, you can see and you can recognize that Thai has been born in a tradition that is very conservative, tradition in Hue. And according to this tradition, the cremation of the body they all want to receive the relics and need to be placed in the glass door or in a stupa, and to say that that is the highest inheritance that they have, or just the relics. And once the teacher has passed away, we need to have a person to be the leader to teach the whole sangha and to make the calls for all of the program. The third thing is that all of the root temple needs to be arranged. Who's going to be the abbot and what kind of authority? And that doesn't change. The abbot doesn't change, and it's very conservative and a dictatorship. And I just wanted to bring this out so you can see the growth of Thai students. And the community is that when Thai passed away, from what I know, is that in the middle of the night, all the monks and nuns opened the cremation, and they saw that they cannot cremate his body, and so then the bones were still intact. So what they did, they closed the crematory again, and they continued to feed wood into burn. And according to Buddhism, in traditional, this does not happen. They want to save every single bone, and they will take all the bone, or they can just take a handful of ashes, and they can invite the bells and invite people to say that I'm going to place Thai's relics on this day, such and such a day. I would invite people to come to make this big ceremony. But in reality, if you see the maturity of the monks and nuns of Thai students at one side, according to what Thai's wishes were. And I would like to repeat this again. It is like you should remember that if you drink tea, but you should not bring the used tea leaves to offer it to anybody else. And so that if you follow the teachings of Thai, all of his Dharma talks, and you can recognize right away, is that when you return home to the root temple and they build the stupa, and you can tell people that this stupa is empty, there's nothing in there. Thai Nhak Hanh is not in there. not in the stupa. It means that Thai is present in each student, both monastic and lay, and anyone who can inherit his Dharma and go into the practice. That person is revering Thai, remembering Thai, and wearing his memorial pin. And this is when they can bring happiness to themselves, penetrate the teachings. And it means that person that can carry the wisdom and the insight of Thai, his own energy of peace and joy, into the future. And so therefore, the first thing that you can recognize is that according to the Plum Village tradition, it seems that the situation of ceremony, to have a piece of bone or ash, we don't have a situation. So then there's no problem that each center had appointed a day where they would cast their Thai's ashes. We didn't have to wait an authority from anyone of an elder brother at all, because the situation lies of inheritance and the continuation of time. The full authority of one person is not an issue, and we can see that it's not new. When the world honored one, when the Buddha had entered into nirvana, in the tradition of Buddhism, it is that Mahakashyapa became the leader of the Sangha. But in fact, it wasn't like that. The Buddha entered into nirvana, and it depended in a whole group of elders, a senior, like the Venerable Kachayana, and they collected a whole community of senior monks to recollect and to record all of their teachings into the sutra text that we have now. So there was no one officially appointed as the leader of the Buddhist Sangha. And this is the virtue of each Arahat at that time, depending on their practice and their time. So you can just imagine the things that Thai had created is something new, but in fact it's not. And this is something that has been the foundation and in harmony of Buddhist teachings in the past until now. And with this like the essential part, I call it essential, because and pure, because it is not influenced by China in any way, or by like the revering of the kings, and it is not influenced by the government. So then Buddhism, when it came to here, when our ancestors come here, we have this idea that we have to have the next person of authority that is as great as the teacher. But then that's how politics works, and it affected the monasteries and the temples and religion. And here is the same in Vietnam. Is the same. It's no different in Vietnam. So if you look into this, you can see the maturity of the number of the monks and nuns of Thai students, even though they are young, but they can continue the many colors of the Buddhist traditions. There is no one spirit, or there's no putting like used tea leaves just to praise, but they penetrate deeply the teachings of Thai teachings of an enlightened one. In their way of interacting, become something more beautiful. And the third thing that I would like to point out is that it isn't because that Thai has passed away, not because of that the brothers have passed away, that all of the monasteries has become closed down. No, but we still have normal activities, and the influence that the Plum Village community has, it had affected a lot of people even here at Deer Park. If you look out, they can see all the practice centers for many years. The Thai had not been present at Deer Park, but the maturity of the monks and nuns here has grown so much. I paid attention that every single year, a lot of young Americans have come here to practice, to ordain, and there are winter retreats where a couple, 10 or a dozen people will come here to practice with the monks and nuns for 3 months. And this is the growth of our community. So you can see that Thai has skillfully arranged for this to happen and created the condition for it to happen. To have a young abbot, but he also took care of all of the people. If you cannot continue the Dharma, then the monks cannot be able to do this. They can only to take refuge in the decision of an elder person. Then, of course, the monastery cannot develop and progress. There's no self-awareness of the activities from the practice of the monastics and the lay friends and the organization of sharing the Dharma in retreats. And so therefore, in the own nature of the individual monks and nuns who have learned the teachings from Thai directly, even though it's not perfect, but we can be proud that they are the one worthy of continuing Thai's Dharma. And we're not continuing his monastery just or his temple like that they have done in the tradition, Vietnamese tradition or in Chinese tradition for so many thousands of years. So if you look in a positive light, then this is the most positive light that Buddhism is present in the United States, in the West. And there's, first of all, the spirit of the sixth harmony is used diligently so that we can allow the culture of the West to come to the practice and they don't feel a distance between monastics and lay. And they don't even feel a distance between a separation, distinction between men and women, and there's no dictatorship as one person being the abbot or abbess and that person making all decisions. This is one of the beautiful aspects that Thai has restored in Buddhism. If you don't believe me, then even at Deer Park, after Venerable Thai Yak Thanh passed away, Brother Pháp Dung was the abbot. But if you look at Brother Pháp Dung, that he lived in Plum Village for 6 years, 7 years, it's so received there was no tradition that an abbot has been away from the temple for 6 or 7 years. And if you asked him for 6 or 7 years, he's not present here, what happened at Deer Park? There nothing happened at all with no abbot. Everybody continued to practice. We still have a retreat, and people continue to come to attend the retreats. And the sun still rises every day. And there's no reason, not because the abbot was not here, that the temple had starved. And this is the one beautiful aspect. If you're not able to recognize this and you think that all the traditions of practice of Thai that Thai has established is like other temples, is not. If you look into the content and you can see that even though it looks normal, but you can't find it anywhere else. There is no temple in Vietnam, in China, Japan, Korea that the ancestor had passed, the teacher has passed, that they are not lost in confusion. But for 7 monasteries, 7 practice centers, 8 in France, in US, Thailand, Vietnam, Germany, Australia, all the different practice centers, his coming and going did not create confusion and dispersion and grief in those monasteries. And in fact, if the students of Thai did not have the capacity to inherit the Dharma, then they wouldn't be able to do this. This is one of the most beautiful things that I would like to share with you so that you can recognize this. I want to check what time it is to see if I'm out of time yet. There's one thing that I think is the last thing that I would like to share with you here is because we are limited in time for me to carry on because we have the ceremony. I will not go around in circles to beat around the bush. Just another 15 minutes, maybe share for another 15 minutes. The last thing that I would like to remind you relates to Thai students inheriting the Dharma and continuing the Dharma. It is something for you to recognize so that you can practice and live and to allow the Thai's insight to penetrate deeply into our heart so that we can receive happiness and joy for ourselves and also to our loved ones. And this is what I would like to share. I don't remember what year it was. It was could be around 2008, 2010. One time Thai was having tea with the monks in the tea room, and one thing that Thai has shared, and I remembered, and then it relates very closely to the activities and the part of the monks and nuns, is that I would like to tell us here is that your mind lives with the content, not with the form. Do you know that Vietnamese Buddhism came to the West? We had all the right to peel away all of that Vietnamese Buddhism, like the formalities of it. The Americans, they don't have a need of religion. They don't have a need of ceremonies and rituals and things like that. They just need a practice to apply for their life in this society, in this industrial community. There's so much heaviness. They need a way or a practice so that their body and mind can be in balance, so that they can take care of all the pressures of everyday life. They don't need rituals, ceremonies, and things like that. The monasteries or the dragons or the like requiem ceremonies, all of those ceremonies, it is not the need of what the American people want. The need is not even the need for the second, third generation Vietnamese. They need a way of practice. And Buddhism has all of this, a way of practice. If you are following your breathing in and out, that is the most purest way of practicing in Buddhism. It has no aspect of religion. There's no condition for anyone to have to do this. Breathing is something that you naturally have. So if all Vietnamese monastics know this, they will shy away from the rituals and ceremonies. If you apply this, and with this, it will allow the Buddha Dharma to continue to be present in the United States. And if you don't do this, then with the rituals and the ceremonies will become old and unapplicable, and you will not be able to survive. You will not able to allow Vietnamese Buddhism to survive in the West. Of course, the Buddha Thai has shared very in detail. He said the U.S. needs the practice of the Buddha. He does not. This country does not need rituals and ceremonies of Vietnam. From the ways of activities of ceremonies and rituals and buildings and structures, all of that on the outer side, that you cannot use that to root Buddhism in the West. So these teachings that Thai has given me, if you can recognize this, that you can see that we have not been able to peel off the first layer. We are not able to penetrate the teachings of Thai. And near closest that we're not even able to allow Thai's teachings on meditations to help ourselves. Of course, we are not able to survive ourselves in a society that is full of material desires and stress and pressure. We can't go further than that, and we are not able to allow Buddhism to take root into this country. So this is the one thing that I would like to share with you to contribute to the Sangha here, so that you can have a clearer vision of the activities and our practice as a community, of the rituals and ceremonies. And this is to share that, when you step into this meditation hall itself, a great meditation hall of a temple main hall, the Buddha needs to almost touch the roof of the ceiling of the meditation hall. But here, if you look into this hall, last night there was a young practitioner who came to visit us. I went into the meditation hall. I don't see any Buddha. Someone commented and said, "There's no Buddha in this hall," and I just smiled and I said, we don't have the Buddha here, but we have the Dharma. The Dharma is in the tea, is in the trees, the plants, and the flower, in your sadness, in your joy, the Dharma in your breath, in your thinking. Then what is the present Dharma? The present Dharma is that you apply your breathing, recognizing the in and out, the coming and going of your body, the no birth and no death nature of yourself, and looking into the awareness that is happening, that you are applying the essential, most purest part of the Dharma into your own life so that you can help yourself to transform your suffering and despair and your grief. So in the end, the Gatha that in the sutra, when the Buddha spoke of the passing of Shariputra to comfort Ananda, it is also to remind each and every one of us that life is like that. Life is such. He said that all phenomena are impermanent. They are bound to birth and death. Only dwelling in the right Dharma, knowing how to practice, knowing how to look deeply, only then you can transcend beyond birth and death, and you can attain complete happiness, peace, and joy. And if you have not been able to penetrate deeply the practice, tasted the Dharma, then even if, well, no matter what you do, you are still a person just like scrambling in this world, in the suffering and despair, running after position, power, fame, temples, big monasteries, big Buddhas, and to have, the numbers of students, it's empty. So if you dwell in the Dharma of practice, and even if the mountain falls and crumbles, when this earth is no longer, you are still undisturbed and at peace, and you dwell in the practice. You inherit the Dharma. You inherit the Dharma. You can inherit the teachings of Thai and to apply it so that you can make your life become more peaceful and joyful in this life for yourself, for your loved ones. On a deeper level, if you can apply Thai's teachings or anyone's teaching to help yourself, from hunger. It means that you are able to end the suffering from hatred, anger, despair, and grief and live peacefully in this life. And in the end, you're able to taste the Dharma, to end all of this wandering and birth and death and for many lifetimes until now. That's it. I'm stopping here. Thank you.